Morning, everybody. Why John 20? Well, we read it, I think it's Friday, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Friday. We read John 20, and there's a moment in there which always jumps out. I know we read it, was it 4 times? We read the account, no, 8 times a year, because we've got it in Matthew, Mark, Luke as well. But John focuses specifically on Mary, and I think it's lovely. And that moment, that one moment, is the most profound moment in all of history. The empty tomb. And she was the first to see it, to see something new under the sun, the first new thing under the sun. And accepting that truth comes with the most significant consequences about who we are, about what life is for, and why we are here. It is not a passive moment. It demands a response, one way or another. The moment the tomb was found empty, even thousands of years ago, has the power to materially change the lives of every person in this room. It didn't even happen near here, in time or in distance. There's no video, there's no YouTube footage of what happened. Just 4 old sets of writing to give the account. And that's what we're here for, to remember. That without Christ, his choices, all of our tombs would remain full. And we're here to celebrate, to scream out at the top of our lungs, it's empty. And that's what leads us to Peter in the disciples at Pentecost, because without it, it wouldn't have happened. But it focuses on Mary. It's not what she was thinking that morning. She was full up, yes, full up and bursting with all the emotions of that weekend. Don't know what to do, don't know what to understand, how to understand it, don't know what step to take next. And so she reverts to routine. It's a human response. We do it every day. She was stunned, she was confused, she was torn to shreds, unable to process what was happening. She had no idea, stumbling in the dark. Not sure what she expected to see when she got to the tomb, but it wasn't this. She hadn't expected to see Christ crucified to start with. He was the Messiah. She knew it, absolutely knew it. Wasn't he? They were all at Jerusalem. They were all celebrating. They were waiting for him to bring the kingdom that day. And at the height of that emotion, of that excitement, in a flash, just a few hours, it went from elation down, down, down to him being dead. But he'd always talked about life. How could this happen? You know, we've all had the feeling, you know, when there's no more space in your emotional bucket, it's full up. There's not even enough space for a little drop of anything else. It's all going to go over the sides. You know that time when you bang your elbow? It's just like that. And it doesn't quite hurt yet, but you know it's coming. And you're trying to process, how bad is it going to be? It's like that moment, isn't it? They don't compute. They don't fit together in your head. And you wander around sometimes in a cloud, fuzzy, just doing the motions, getting up, doing your daily things, going to bed, getting up, not processing. And then for Mary, the stone was removed. And that was it. She couldn't cope. No more. And the tears came. How can this get any worse? They've even stolen his body. And we got the disciples come and they look. And then she's left alone in the garden. I mean, we're all very fragile little things. Limited machines when you break it down. We can see things 60 times a second. It's about the limit. We can hear things if you're young and like me, able to. 20 hertz is the lowest, 200 hertz is the highest, a small range in the sound spectrum. But we're quite amazing in some ways. Research shows that the touch of your finger, in some cases, can feel even a molecule difference. So we have got some amazing abilities. But we have limits. We're tied to our own perspectives, what we see. We are closed-minded because those perspectives give us that. They bind us. We are predictable in how we're going to behave. And we can't handle too much at once through all the different senses. They can get overloaded. And it's surprising how many times that happens to us each day. Mary was overwhelmed by the situation. She couldn't process it. Let me give you recount a little story just to illustrate from my experience. I've seen it quite a lot when I've been flying a plane, and you're dealing with all the inputs. But a little story from 1983. Captain Robert Pearson was flying a slightly larger plane than the ones I've ever flown, a Boeing 767 from Ottawa to Edmonton in Canada. And about halfway between the two, the plane was flying lovely, 41,000 feet. It's quite high, actually. It's almost the ceiling of that plane. 41,000 feet, and they're about halfway, and then both engines shut down. Not one, both. They were empty. They'd run out of fuel. Now, a 767 doesn't glide very well. They're not designed to glide. And of course, the pilots immediately turn to the emergency manual, which has got instructions on how they should handle each of the situations. And they turn to the page for double engine failure and find that there isn't one, because nobody had ever dealt with a situation of both engines going off. Now, that aircraft will come down at 2,000 feet every minute, whatever they do. That's the best it will do. So if you work that out from 41,000 feet, they've got 20 minutes and they will be on the ground in one way or another. And actually, 17 minutes later, that aircraft was stationary on a disused runway. In those 17 minutes, the pilot's workload in an aircraft is extreme. The stress is extreme. The amount of information they have to deal with is extreme. If you're interested, take a look. It's the Gimli glider, the incident. Human behaviour at those high stresses and high workloads is different. We actually shut down our responses. We triage automatically, and we cut things out. You don't realise you're doing it, but you do. And you stop doing things which are not important for your survival, in this case. Information is coming in, and maybe later it's stored, and later you can recount it. But actually, at the time, there's no indication that that's happened. And when you listen to the cockpit recorder for that aircraft, it's almost silent, all 17 minutes. You think nothing's happening, but it's absolutely going on inside that cockpit. But shutting down on speaking was the first thing that goes. They say what's necessary, nothing more. And later they will recount, there was a lot of conversation. Yeah, we said everything that we needed to say. There was no stopping of that, no conscious decision to do it. But what's actually happening is their senses are full up, unable to process that extra thing that's not necessary, not critical for life. The body's kept handling the information, but little old me just can't process it. And that's where Mary was. Absolutely full up of emotion. Even when she spoke to an angel, it didn't register what was happening. She just spoke to the person like a man. Even when she spoke to Jesus. We have a crisp ability to prioritise. And the important thing for her was, where's his body? Where's my Lord? Until he turns to her and he speaks her name. And then in an instant, like that, all of the emotion is gone. All of that fear and that dread, it's disappeared. And it's full back up again with something else, which she doesn't understand. The processing starts. He says, teacher. The fear, the sadness washed away. The torn heart, not mended. It never is it? But replaced. And the penny starts to drop, a pretty big penny. And she's full again. And it takes time to bring those things together. And as I said, it's a unique time in history, but not a unique experience. Now, the reason I went to John 20 is because I also have some thoughts from the other reading on the same day, which is actually in 2 Chronicles 20, which is another really interesting link to that same set of emotions. Now, totally different time. 2 Chronicles 20, and I'll read the first 3 verses just to remind you where this is at. It's a time in Jerusalem when we've got troubles. The Moabites and the Ammonites, with some of the Menuhites, came to wage war against Jehoshaphat. And some people came and told Jehoshaphat, a vast army is coming against you from Edom, from the other side of the Dead Sea. It's already in Hazezon Tamar. That's the En-Gedi desert. Alarmed, Jehoshaphat resolved to inquire of the Lord, and he proclaimed a fast for all of Judah. The people of Judah came together into Jerusalem to help seek the Lord. Indeed, they came from every town in Judah to seek him. So this is a time of stress again. They've got a large army, and Judah's not a big nation at this time. Not very powerful, but what a leader, what a king. What he actually does next is he gets the people in Jerusalem and he lays out to them, all the people, and he says, this is our situation. It's bad news. There's an army coming and they're coming to kill us. And he says, and I have no plan. I've got nothing. I don't know how to defend you against this. I've got nothing. We are going to die. So come to Jerusalem, fast and pray, and pray to God, because I've got nothing that's going to save you. Now that's pretty brutal. I don't think any leader today would lay that out quite the same way. And the people came. They were full up with fear, real fear for the families that were in Jerusalem at that time. They went to the place where the army was going to attack, and they went into the walled city to hide. And it must have felt like their tomb as they closed those doors, full up with people, locked in the tomb. No way to process how we're going to get out of this one. And then there's a prayer. Jehoshaphat prays in verse 5, Lord, the God of our ancestors, are you not the God who is in heaven? You rule over all the kingdoms of the nations. Power and might are in your hand, and no one can withstand you. Our God, did you not drive out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel and give it forever to the descendants of Abraham, your friend? They have lived in it and have built in it a sanctuary for your name, saying, if calamity comes upon us, whether the sword or of judgment or the plague or famine, we will stand in your presence before this temple that bears your name, and will cry out to you in our distress, and you will hear us, and save us. But now here are men from Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, whose territory you would not allow Israel to invade when they came from Egypt. So they turned away from them and did not destroy them. See how they are repaying us by coming to drive us out of the possession you have given us as an inheritance. Our God, will you not judge them? For we have no power to face this vast army that is attacking us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. Wow. The whole of Judah heard this, and why they didn't run away crying is amazing, because their faith was in God. And God replies through a man in the crowd, standing in the crowd near the wall, who was inspired to speak. He says, the battle is not yours, but God's. And there's the encouragement, there's the seed. But the instruction comes, I want you not to stay in the tomb, you have to go out. All of you, women and children, I want you to get on the road, and I want you to go towards the enemy. Not away from it, but towards it. Knowing that they were hopelessly outnumbered. They weren't an army. This was farmers women, children, old people, all of them had to go. Now, the place they had to go to was the desert of Tekoa. It's about 15 miles, roughly. And they're heading towards Bethlehem. It's just south of Bethlehem that they're going to. It's 15 miles to the other side. It's about 6 miles to the place that they were actually going to. So it's not a huge distance. They could probably get there in, half a day, 3/4 of a day, given that number of people. So early the next morning, all of them, they didn't leave anybody behind, women and children, no army, no swords, they had nothing really. They left the safety of the walls of the tomb that they were in, and they headed out, full of the emotions for that trip. They were there to support each other, to try and keep the group together. But it must have been really difficult to be in that group, in silence, walking towards an army. Verse 20 says, early in the morning they left for the desert of Tekoa. As they set out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, listen to me, Judah and people of Jerusalem. Have faith in the Lord your God, and you will be upheld. Have faith in his prophets, and you'll be successful. And the people consulted. It wasn't Jehoshaphat. The people consulted in verse 21. They needed something to hold them together. They needed something to give them a purpose, to hold that emotion so they didn't break apart. It's not clear if the king suggests. I imagine it was probably the army leader. I'd like to think that, at least. And he says this, after consulting the people, Jehoshaphat appointed men to sing to the Lord and to praise him for the splendour of his holiness as they went out at the head of the army, saying, give thanks to the Lord, for his love endures forever. So they put a choir together. They put a choir together and they put them at the front. Now, singing brings unity. It just does. When we sing together, we bring ourselves together. We uplift each other. And unity kills fear. It just goes because you've got other people that are with you on that same journey. It's pretty hard to be afraid when you're singing out loud. And they began to sing. And as they began to sing, even before they got to the army, God wiped that army out. And they got there and it took them 6 days to pick up all the stuff that was there. And immediately I think of Isaiah 63. I looked, but there was no one to help. I was appalled that no one gave support. So my own arm reached out and achieved salvation for me. And my own wrath sustained me. I trampled the nations in my anger. In my wrath, I made them drunk and poured their blood on the ground. And Judah's tomb remained empty that day. Empty to full. When they brought all that stuff back in that God had given them because of their faith. One last empty to full before we think about Christ. John 21. The next chapter from where we read, it's about breakfast on the beach. I'm sure you'll remember it. It's about the empty nets. So what does Peter do after Jesus has been crucified? The tomb has been found empty. We don't know how long it was between those two events. But once again, Peter reverts to what he does, to the routine. I'm a fisherman. What do fishermen do? They go fishing. So he says, look, I'm going to go and fish. John told us when they've been fishing all night again, they saw Jesus on the beach. They didn't know it was him. But they caught not a minnow once again. Their nets were totally empty. And it really wasn't just their nets, was it? Their hearts were as well. They really were probably not quite sure what to do. They'd lost their purpose and their direction. And that was evident with the empty nets as well. You remember that previous time when Peter met Jesus, and Jesus told him to cast the net elsewhere. Master, he'd said, we've toiled all night and caught nothing. Remember that one? Luke 5 verse 4. Peter come a long way since then. A call from a stranger on the beach. They can't see because they're 100 yards out, 100 metres, I guess is what I'd say. I don't know if it is. Probably not, is it? But it's a distance that you couldn't see. A stranger calls from the beach. Children, have you any food? No, they reply. We haven't got a thing. Let down your nets on the other side of the boat. Now, the futility of that statement really can't be underestimated. You've been fishing all night, and they would have been working in an area that they know has got fish. What difference is it going to make putting the nets on the other side of the boat? Are they that small that the fish are going to be that side rather than this side? But he doesn't say the same thing. He doesn't say it's futile. He just does it. What a long way he's come. It's almost as daft as sending a choir to face an army, or thinking an empty tomb would mean anything other than robbery. Trust. Even when all their senses and emotions were screaming otherwise, faith. And because they let their nets down, they had breakfast on the beach that morning with their master. Empty nets to a full life, just because of that faith. So what's in it for us? Well, I'll mix my metaphors badly here, so you can tell me off afterwards. We fill up over the week, don't we? We fill up with all sorts of rubbish, stresses and workloads and worries, and we haven't got an army to face them. We haven't got a way to know what to do next. And so we revert to routine quite regularly. And maybe this morning is routine. Maybe the things you do during the week are routine. We're not quite sure what else to do. But if you listen carefully, Jesus is still calling your name. What else is there to fear? Send out the choir. Drown the fear together in the volume that we bring, in the encouragement we get from one another, because the tomb is empty. Your tomb, my tomb, is empty. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord.